Welcome back, clinical problem solvers. Today's episode, we're going to discuss how to make a healthy white egg omelet. I'm just joking. My name is Reza Manesh. I am a clinician and educator in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm co-founder of the Clinical Problem Solvers, which is a venture dedicated to teaching the art of diagnosis for free. Which really, diagnosis is one of our most important procedures in medicine. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you. We recently recorded an episode on an approach to hypoglycemia. And in that episode, I shared a medical mistake I made during my training. Today, I want to reflect on making medical mistakes. It was my intern year around October, November, where I admitted a patient with end-stage renal disease with bacteremia. And the plan was to remove his infected catheter line, give him a dialysis holiday with antibiotics, and then reinsert the tunneled line and reinitiate hemodialysis. So every day we were monitoring his electrolytes, given he didn't have a functioning kidney. I recall the nurse called me to tell me that his potassium was 5.5, and I panicked. So I obtained an electrocardiogram, and when I reviewed the EKG, I thought I saw peak T waves. So I thought to myself, we gotta lower this patient's potassium. And his kidneys weren't functioning, so diuretics were not an option as he was anuric. So I gave him laxatives to try to remove the potassium through bowel movements. I also prescribed insulin as a way to mobilize potassium into the cells. I left that day more confident than ever and said, wow, finally I'm getting the hang of this. So the next day, I go into the hospital to get sign out from the overnight physician. And she had told me that my patient was transferred to the intensive care unit. Immediately, I thought, what mistake did I make? And what I learned was when the patient went to get his tunneled catheter line, they couldn't wake him up in interventional radiology. And so they checked a finger glucose and it was 15. So he was transferred to the intensive care unit and started on an IV glucose drip for hypoglycemia coma. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I just committed a medical mistake that led to harm. And I felt remorse, I felt guilt, I felt inadequate. In that day, I did not want to practice medicine. After reflecting, I thought to myself that I owe it to this patient to learn from my mistake so I don't commit it again in the future. And furthermore, I rationalized that we are human beings. It happens that we're practicing in high-stakes circumstances, so our mistakes may have a consequence on someone's health. Nevertheless, we're humans, we're not perfect, and we're gonna make mistakes. So I went and I got the EKG where I thought I had seen peak T waves, and I shared it with a faculty member who said, Reza, these are not peak, these are tall. And remember to always compare the EKG to the patient's prior EKG. I spoke to the endocrinologist which I learned that patients who have kidney failure don't clear insulin, so the insulin you administer will act for a longer period of time because it's not getting metabolized. Also, those with impaired renal function are deficient in gluconeogenesis. So these are two hits that would lead to prolonged hypoglycemia after giving insulin in the setting of end-stage renal disease. And I went back and I reviewed how I ordered the insulin. I had ordered it subcutaneously, not intravenously. So I made a number of mistakes that led to patient harm. One is I misinterpreted the EKG. Two is I administered the insulin sub-Q as opposed to IV. And 3, I didn't give a reduced amount of insulin given the patient had end-stage renal disease with poor insulin metabolism and poor gluconeogenesis. So one study showed that physicians in training who experience guilt and remorse and inadequacy after making a mistake are more likely to make constructive changes and improve their skills for the next patient they encounter. So that's really important. The other thing I did was I went and talked to the patient, and I admitted to all the mistakes I had made. And the patient said, "Reza, I forgive you, but I'm gonna get the hell out of the hospital." And I couldn't blame the patient. If I were the patient, I too would want to leave the hospital. So, the purpose of this video is not to divulge my mistakes to you. It's to let you know that mistakes are inevitable. You will never stop making mistakes. But the important pearl is to learn from your mistake, because the only mistake is not to learn from your mistake. And when you share your mistakes with your colleagues or your faculty, they will open up about the mistakes they've committed and what they learned from those experiences. So to all of you who've made a mistake, know that you're not alone. Learn from your mistakes, share your mistakes, and keep working on improving your clinical skills. And that's what I learned. In 2 days, we're going out for dinner with the Clinical Problem Solvers crew on the East Coast. And we have a special surprise for you. So stay tuned. Hopefully that video will be released by Friday. Thank you so much.